Alright guys, you got your boy Stingren here today, and today we're back with some reverse 1999 content. In today's video, we're going to be talking about ranking all of the characters with your free portray selector. So this is going to be a video that's going to be explaining to you what you should ultimately get from the free selector that we will be getting in patch 2.8. If you guys didn't watch the live stream recap, one of the biggest things that did reveal is that as soon as you log in 2.8, you will be able to get a free portray selector. This is for everyone, so you don't have to pay any money, anything. I also want to give a special shout out to my good friend Very made this list really just for a character like portray kind of thing, but I tweaked the list a little bit just so I can use it just for this. But thanks to him for putting all the unit images together so that way we could just do it like that. So again, thanks my friend. Alright, so I'm gonna go through every single unit from 1.0 to 2.6. 2.6, by the way, is exclusive to global. If you guys don't know, global actually didn't have, not global, CN did not actually have the 2.6 characters. They had up to 2.5. So now we have two additional characters that we can use, and Ricoletta and Alf for the selector, which is actually insane because those are actually pretty good. That's pretty good. We'll talk about one of those characters and why that ranks up very well. But anyway, let's get right into it and let's talk about the first character. So the first character is going to be 6. So 6 is first thing, which is we're going to be using Pritwin, by the way, for the bulk of the characters here because we have to kind of show what their P1 does anyway. But 6 is P1. It gives you 100% extra mental damage for every one type of negative status on the enemy, or status down, or control. Now, granted that 6 can really flood the enemy with a lot of negative statuses, control, and all that. Well, really just negative statuses and stat downs. You can really rank this up really high. Back then, this used to be a really powerful thing because what this would do is this will basically make 6 into a DPS if you can really get his Eureka up. If you can get his Moxie up enough, get him enough Eureka, make sure you aren't really wasting the 5 stacks of Eureka as proper. But for what it's worth, his DPS used to be good. Now in today's metagame, I would not invest in here, so I would not say that this is worth. Before, DPS 6 used to be kind of a relevant thing, especially like in mains bulletin, especially for the Soul Day boss stage, where he was actually pretty good there for, the general amp that the stage gave you, his ability to spread debuffs, good things there. But for what it's worth, not anymore, not really overly worth. 37 gives you, whenever you enter the battle, you get a crit rate boost of 40%, doubling from her I3 from 20%. This is kind of niche, honestly. It's nice because it helps with her consistent crit, which is good for specific team setups that want crits. You know what I mean? Like if specific things trigger via crit, this of course triggers certain things, which is really nice. Of course, she herself wants crits too to give herself extra Eureka. So it kind of helps. But it's not overly worth it, honestly. If you were to get P2, then it would actually be up here because then that makes her sub DPSing a little bit more fluid and more current and up to date comparably to other sub DPSs in the game. She can at least put up some feasible numbers, not anything spectacular or anything, but enough to be good. A Knight, we won't really go through his because his is just not worth. It's just a modifier boost to his ultimate. With a now Euphoria in sight, this could change because they could make him into ultimate focus character and then he could kind of be cracked, but we'll see. We will see. Alf actually goes into great P1 because he has the flutter page P1. So if you know what flutter page P1 does, the biggest thing that it does is it boosts her attacking modifier of her skills, but it gives you continuous action for an additional round. This is huge because what this does, I say this every single time I talk about, whenever I talk about a character, but whenever you have an ability to give yourself 5 actions, it gives you so much breathing room to do something else. You know what I mean? This means you don't have to spam the skill every turn. So this means you can double down on something else. You can focus on reevaluating your resources to something else. You can use it as an instance for ranking up. For impromptu, that actually is a pretty powerful play, because you can rank up 2 cards that have impromptu markers on them to make it into a stronger card, which is nice. That's effectively a little bit more impromptu that you get for that turn. So it is a good upgrade. It's a very, very good upgrade. Also, the additional chance from his Eureka now being buffed from 25% to 50% is actually, again, very nice, because he does want to have consistent flowing of Eureka. So for what it's worth, I would actually say Alp's P1 is a very, very good investment to have. Next up is Ali, kind of same as the Knight, just a damage beam boost. Argus, if we're looking at just P1, I wouldn't say that it's overly worth it. However, if you're gonna get Argus to P2, it's actually pretty worth, because Argus's debuff gets improved. Her special pinpointed debuff actually gets improved by quite a bit. P1 gives you modifier boost for her follow-up, which it's only really good for the Marcus team, because this is the most consistent way you can get level 3 cast of Gravedigger without really having to worry or try for it, so to speak. But P2 gives you 20% now base rate, and now you get 2.5% damage reduction and critical defense minus 2.5 per stack. So this actually racks up really, really well. So I believe it jumps up to quite a bit. So actually P2 would actually be a pretty good overall debuff for her, which makes it a pretty good P2 to invest into. But if you're looking at Argus from just a P0 to P1 aspect, I wouldn't say it's worth. But P2 is pretty good, but we're still gonna say it's not overly worth, because her P1's not all that amazing. But P2, pretty good. Barca, I'm gonna put Barca in a good P1 too, because Barca gives you an additional cast of impromptu instance for the turn, which you kind of already can kind of spell out what that means. That's just an additional cast, which can basically mean a lot more damage, provided that you run her with her optimal team. So this is actually a very, very powerful boost going forward. So for what it's worth, it's another cast of it's another attack instance of the impromptu incantation, which that's really good. I mean, considering that she already has like a cube that gives her an additional attack, an additional impromptu cast, so that's 3, and then you have other teammates that can give you extra instances as well. Kinda good. So it's a good boost for overall damage. I would say P1 is actually pretty good for Barca. Centurion, kind of the same, doesn't really need it. Druvis, also same, doesn't really need it. Ezra, I don't think Ezra's is overly worth now, because of how he has functioned from his new support. So Ezra went from really not being a kind of like a person who wanted to heal your team to not really healing. The main form of healing now comes off of Blood Teeth Path, which he heals quite a bit now, to where this actually doesn't matter at all. And the additional Eureka could be good maybe for his Dynamo path, but even for Dynamo, you're not really caring about this recovery. You're not really caring about this, because Dynamo, you're not really needing to heal that much anyway, because he is the de facto sustain. He will put up a good enough shield for you to actually survive. So not really worth it. So for honest, I would just say it's not really worth. Eternity, same, not really worth it. Fatutu gets, I believe she gets an additional amount of spirit shells, if I'm not mistaken. So she gets, yep, when entering the battle, the additional stacks of spirit shell gain is now increased to 8. This isn't bad. This doesn't really change up too much. It just gives her more spirit shells to actually work with, which is pretty nice. So I would say, if anything, that's more so of a niche thing. Flutter Page 100% can go into GOAT P1. Because we already just explained that for Alf, but as you just know, the biggest thing is the +1 additional turn on continuous action, which of course is going to be the big thing. This right here, right? We don't really care too much about the modifier increase of Cotton Kite, but yeah. Jutien, you know, there's an argument out there that actually makes Jutien P1 actually good. And let me tell you why. It has to actually do with his Euphoria. So his base Euphoria, I mean his baseless P1, like the base P1, it gives you +1 to his field, right? Which in hindsight is actually pretty decent because it gives you an additional turn to mess with. However, with his Euphoria, his field is now infinite. So you're probably wondering, why does the P1 matter now, rather? Well, actually, if you guys don't know, his special field now grants this effect. It grants ultimate might plus 13% plus the number of time this array has been effective. So basically, the more that this field stays up, the stronger this gets. With him having infinite, and you have to have the amount of Eureka to keep it active, this actually can get to really high numbers, right? The really cool thing is now with this P1, this effectively counts as you casting the field twice. So instead of you starting with 13.5%, you would start with 27% ultimate might instead instantly, and this happens every single time you cast a prophecy foretold, or a prophecy told, so to speak. So it's an argument because potentially if you can really get him with good moxie gain, especially if you run him on the ult team, which is what he wants to be on anyway, then you can get some really fast and high ultimate might value because of, you know, you have Ricoletta that can put a passion drain, then Jutien can attack after they get additional moxie. Melania is the very same way. Whenever she's attacked, she puts a passion drain, and you can just have Jutien follow up. You know what I mean? Like, there's a good way for him to really generate moxie to be able to cast that field rapid. So there's an argument where making his P1 when he gets his Euphoria, and I believe it's 3.0, or I believe it's 3.0 that he gets his Euphoria, but there is an argument that it's good, but for right now, it's not overly worth it. It's not overly worth it, unfortunately. It's gonna be good when it gets to 3.0 though. If you save this for 3.0, then I would definitely say it's a great P1 then, because of how fast you can actually really rack up ultimate might, right? But ultimately speaking, it's not worth it for right now. Isolde is not really worth it either. I believe she gives you additional reality damage whenever she triggers her follow-up. I think it goes up from like 10 to 13%, which that's not really that much of a bonus. I mean, 10 to 13% from Intermezzo. I mean, it gets, of course, stronger because of the amount of burn that you can get, but overall, it's not really all that worth it. But Jay is niche because his tempering gets improved, if I'm not mistaken. It gets improved from, I think, 25 to 40%, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering his P1 correctly. But let me see. Yep, it now deals 40% reality damage for every 10% missing sub, deals an additional 15%. So 55% per, 55% on base, but of course it goes up over time. It does make his own main DPSing abilities a little bit better, so it's a niche upgrade. Jessica just improves her ult, not really worth it. You're not supposed to be here. Actually, I forgot to take her out. Ju is a limited character, we cannot select her. Kala gives herself one additional planet. That's just not worth it. I mean, before there used to be an argument for P1, but yeah. Kakania actually has a pretty good P1. What it does is it gives you an additional 100 attack off of her empathy plus the base amount. So as you can see, it gives you attack bonus plus 400%, and the additional attack bonus is increased to 13%. So basically, it's a bigger attack boost for your character, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. Liang Yu is also not supposed to be here, so we'll take her out. Lilia goes into niche because if you had to use her Euphoria, having additional instances where you can buff her ult is absolutely fine, but ultimately speaking, nah, not really worth it. But Lepera is also another really good one because her field actually gets improved here. Let me actually find her. So Lepera gets from 40% field, it goes up to 50%, so 40% to 50%, which is big. And then the baseline conversion rate goes from 40% to 65%. So this is really good. I do think this is a effective plus on getting Lepera. So if you can get this on her, this is actually a really good thing, considering the fact that Lepera is still one of the more commonly ran supports. alongside the other big 2 units such as like Vila and Mercuria, I mean, hey, it's a good bonus. Can't argue with that bonus. Next up is Marcus. Marcus doesn't really provide you with much for her P1. I believe it gives you 1 additional Eureka instead of 2, I believe. So says you win during the battle, start the round 2. So you get yourself basically 3 Eureka when entering the battle, or 4 Eureka, I believe. You get the when entering the battle is increased to 3, and then at the start of the round you get 1. So I guess what that does for you is it gets you an early start where you can rank up 2 of her cards instead of just 1, which is, I guess that's a niche. I mean, that just for her Euphoria now, it actually it's kind of better because that gives you more stacks of life experience a little bit quicker, but it's only really just 1 turn of down. So it's just 1 turn of improvement. That's really what that's about. That's just 1 improvement. Medicine Pocket, increased modifier on ult, definitely not worth. Millennia, I will put Millennia in great P2, honestly. If you have her at P1 already, then going for a P2 would actually be really good because you get the additional stack of Thief Master, which is really powerful because it sets up really quick ways for her to kind of get into 5 Moxie to get to that 3 stack, so you can get that maximum amount of to get the maximum effect of her Euphoria, which gives you 72% ultimate mind to the entire team. So definitely a really good thing there. And of course the modifier buff from P1 in her case actually does have some value because you want to be spamming ult with her anyway, so it's something. It's worth. All right, Mercuria, it's actually a great P1. Merc's P1, if I'm not mistaken, it reduces the amount of Moxie needed from 3 to 2. I've talked about this before in one of my older videos where I talked about this. The reason why this is really good is because with her ult being active, all incantations are effectively considered as a rank 2 at a minimum. So this means when the 2 turns her ult is active, or even the turn you cast and then you cast the skills before or the skills after the ult, you're going to be getting 2 to 3 Moxie within the duration of this rank up effect is active, just instantly, you know. And then you could potentially even combine this with her antidote cube, which gives you a 48% chance at max amplify to give you Moxie +1 for that round. You can potentially loop her ult and keep it in pure rotation, which is of course going to keep you having that rank up effect going. So really nice effect there. So for what it's worth, I do think it's a solid P1. Definitely worth. I would also say that her P2 is also incredibly good too, because her crit damage increase goes from 50% and incantation might goes to 30% increase, which is very strong. So if you already had her at P1, taking her to P2 also wouldn't be a terrible thing, because now you get 50% crit damage and 30% incantation might for incantation might DPSs like Marcus, for example. So really good upgrade there. Miss New Babel, not really worth it. Nor, I believe, Nor gets increased chance to cast her ult, I believe. Let me check. For each stack of Genius Idea held, the chance to recast ultimate is increased to 10%. That's not really worth it, honestly. That's not really worth it. Pickles is just a modifier increase on ult, not worth it. Ricoletta, I think Ricoletta gives you an additional precast, if I'm not mistaken. So here it is, spontaneous writing. When casting ultimate, the maximum stack of preparation Ricoletta is increased to 2. Now, this is a good and a bad. So it's good for like Millennia, because what this does is when you have to kind of rebound yourself and kind of get yourself set up for the next nuke, you can technically do it quicker, which is cool. But it's bad if it lands on Ricoletta, because you don't really want to ult with Ricoletta until you build up your stacks of Momo Mythic or a Symbol Narrative, right? You don't want to do that. So you don't really control how this works because it's targeting the highest Moxie character. If it's Melania and her being able to ult twice, for example, in that singular rotation, or another character who can generally benefit from ulting, like Jutien when he gets his Euphoria, Melania, you know, those characters of that nature, so that you can get their bonuses, then yeah, sure. But even then, with Melania, the bonuses stop after a point, because obviously after your third stack of ult, or when you get your full 6 stacks of fixed plan, then there's really no need for you to ult outside of just personal damage, because you already have the full stacks. Jutien technically gets a little bit better with this, because again, he wants to ult many times, because that's going to give him increased, well, further increases his field, while also increasing it every single turn while the array is active. So there's benefit for that synergy, but yeah. But for Ricoletta herself, it doesn't really work too well. But I will say, for at least having some synergy out there, it's a niche but not overly worth investment. Regulus, nah, not really. Semmelweis gives you, I believe she gives you a damage amp on field. Alright, and Soa rises again. Whenever allied character attacks, a 10% HP gain additional damage bonus of 7.5% up to 60%. That's not bad. I mean, with her role now being support, providing any sort of amplification to your main team's DPS output, that's not bad. I would say that's an okay one. Shemaine, absolutely not. Sotheby, absolutely not. Spoth, absolutely not. Tooth is just a modifier increase too. Nah. I guess you can say Tuesdays is kind of niche, considering that she can put up a lot of poison. It basically just gives her additional poison, if I'm not mistaken. So let me see. It gives her the chance of inflicted poison is now increased to 2, and the additional Genesis damage is now boosted up to, or times 50%. Okay, that's not bad. That's just a little bit of extra Genesis damage, which I guess that's fine. Ulrich, I'm gonna say Ulrich is actually a pretty strong P1. He is the free character that we'll be getting in 2.8. All you gotta do is simply just log in and you'll get him for free. So if you want to kind of use your selector for him, by all means. But what his P1 does is the ultimate might increase of frequency analysis for every 1 set of keys is increased to 5.5, and the damage taken reduction increase from spectral analysis goes up from 1 set of keys to 5.5. This is really potent. This gives him more potential output and more potential damage. So as you can see, his spectral gives him 30% reduction and ultimate might 30, and then this goes up to 5.5% per effective keys, which of course, that's pretty cool. So for what it's worth, it's a pretty good P1. It's a pretty good amplification for a support for the Dynamo team too, so gonna be a really good one. Vila, I would say Vila's a pretty good P1 too. It buffs her song for reality units to a 30-30, which is actually really strong. And for mental characters, it buffs it to a 40-50, which is, and you know, kind of strong. So yeah, pretty good P1 there. But let me see, Vila. As you can see, the crit damage bonus is buffed up to 30-30. Of course, this is changed if you are a mental character, so pretty good. Voyager is not really that worth it. Willow, I think Willow's not really worth it either. I think hers just gives you additional poison ticks or something. Yeah, it goes from to its base amount to 24, which I believe hers is 20%. So yeah, it only gives you 4% extra Genesis damage. That's not really worth. And of course, Winsong. I will put Winsong in good P1. Honestly, good P1, good P2. Both Winsong's P1 and P2 are actually pretty good upgrades, if I'm not mistaken. So let's actually just open it up here. But yeah, as you can see, The skill gets buffed up from 480 to plus 200, which is 680%. Because remember, you want to be casting this whenever you do the ult, so 680 when having the additional Eureka to spend is crazy. And when you're in battle, her crit rate now goes up to 25%, which is very strong. So for what it's worth, actually a pretty strong P2 if you can get there. So but yeah, that is going to be my list of characters that I recommend. I hope you guys did enjoy, but this is what I recommend. I recommend Alf, Barca, Flutterpage, Cacania, Lapera, Mercuria, Ulrich, and Vila. And P2s, if you were to be able to get them, I would recommend Argus, Melania, and Winsong. And these are just some fun niche options that can still see relevance in their recommended team types. But you know, it's not something that you should really hyper prioritize, in my honest opinion. But anyway, this has been your boy Stingren, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.